Good evening, all. The regular session of the Planning Commission of the City of Lancaster will please come to order, and I have to bang the gavel, right, Ms. Reyes? All right. Tonight, Vice Chair Hall will offer the invocation, and I'll lead the pledge. So if you'd all please stand.
Bow your heads with me. Lord, I ask that your blessings on this city to continue. Bless the staff that prepares this meeting. Bless the commissioners to hear and make decisions that will bring you glory. Bless the people that show up and watch this meeting. Most of all, bless our first responders, soldiers, and family that look after us. In your name I pray, amen.
You join me, please. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The roll call, please.
Commissioners Diana Cook.
Present.
Miguel Coronado.
Present.
Cassandra Harvey. Absent. Raj Mali. Absent. Fabian Teresiano.
Here.
Vice Chair Randy Hall.
Here.
Chairman James Bowes.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Public business from the floor. If an individual is unable to stay for the entire meeting, we offer a 2-minute opportunity at this time to offer your testimony. Do we have any early speakers?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. So, any person who would like to address the Commission on any agendized item is requested to complete a speaker's card for the recording secretary identifying the agenda item that you'd like to discuss. Once the Planning Commission takes up that item, we will call upon you to offer what you have to say to us. Individual speakers would be limited then to 3 minutes each. First item on our agenda is the approval of the regular meeting minutes of July 20th, 2015. Have a motion, please?
I move that we approve the minutes of the July 20th, 2015 meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 4-0 with 1 abstention.
Thank you. All right. Next items I should say on our agenda are 3 map extensions on continued public hearings. The hearings were open on this our last meeting and continued until tonight. So for the record, the public hearings are open. And also for the record, we have received correspondence in our packets tonight from United Engineering Group, uncontested letter, Antelope Valley Engineering, an uncontested letter, Icon Properties, an uncontested letter, and future or additional item later in the agenda, Just Dyco, uncontested letter. So we do not have an uncontested letter on 2A, which is tentative tract map number 60885. So could I have a brief staff report, please?
Good evening, Chairman Bowes, Commissioners. The time extension request for TTM 60885 was before you last month. The applicant provided us a letter contesting some conditions. We have since had a discussion with the applicant, and we've modified a few conditions that we thought would be amenable to the applicant. Specifically, the conditions that were revised include, I'll just state here, this is condition number 17. Per the direction of the Director of Development Services, the applicant shall resubmit a revised tentative map prior to first submittal of final map that reflects all of the revised and added conditions. Initially, we had asked the applicant to submit a revised map within 90 days of the granting of the extension. We've revised the condition to give the applicant more time to do so. In fact, enough time so that they don't have to spend upfront engineering costs to get the map revised. We're allowing them to submit a revised map prior to the first submittal of their final map. We've also made a modification. This is in regards to fencing for corner lots. This is condition number 13. We've added some language to allow for some more flexibility. The condition now includes some language that says the director may consider other fencing designs that achieve the same intention of creating a more open streetscape. So we're not dictating what they have to build for corner lots, but we are stating what we would like to see as far as the intention. So with those modifications, we are recommending approval of the time extension, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you. There may be some. Anyone?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
We originally received a contested letter from the applicant. Has he retracted that letter? And do we have an uncontested letter on file?
I've had some communication with the applicant, but I do not have a written letter. I do not have a written uncontested letter.
All right, then, is the applicant here and care to address us tonight? Afternoon. Welcome. I don't know if your mic's on. Hang on a sec. Try it now. There we go.
There we go. Okay. Good evening, Planning Commissioners, city staff, and members of the community. My name is Chris Pinero. I'm a project management consultant for Royal Investors, and I'd like to first of all thank you for continuing the matter from the last meeting to this meeting. Gave us time to work with the planning staff to come up with these revised conditions. We agreed to those revised conditions, and I think I mentioned last time that we rescinded the letter based on that we were going to come back and have the opportunity to work with staff and continue this matter last meeting. So we're happy with the revisions and find them acceptable. Thank you.
So just to be clear, Ms. Pinero, is it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That the matters before us and the revised conditions are acceptable to the applicant.
Correct, and
As
that's
written.
for both A and C as
For both A and C, all right, thank you.
thank you.
All right. Do we have any other speakers on this item?
I have no speaker slips, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any questions or comments before I close the public hearing on this? None? All right, then it's appropriate to close the public hearing without objection and consider a motion.
I'll make the motion that we grant a one-year extension to July 18, 2016, based on the findings contained in staff report and subject to the revised condition list, attachment to resolution number 05-38.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right, any further questions, comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is item 2B, tentative tract map number 61574. This is a continued public hearing, so the hearing is open on this since last month. We have received, I believe, an uncontested letter on this item. Do we have any speakers?
I have no slips, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Commission's pleasure to hear a staff report, or shall we waive the staff report and move forward? All right, then. There's no objection to waive the staff report since we have an uncontested letter in this particular case from the applicant indicating that they agree with all the conditions as proposed. So we'll close the public hearing without objection and consider a motion on this matter.
I move that we grant a one-year extension to July 17th, 2016, based on the findings contained in the staff report and subject to the revised conditions list, attachment to resolution number 06-56.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Anything further from anyone? Please vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next continued public hearing is 2C, tentative tract map number 61734. So the public hearing is considered open on this as well. And we have heard from the applicant's representative indicating that they accept the conditions, revised conditions as written. So do we have any speakers on this matter?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any objection to waiving the public or the staff report on this from anyone? All right, then. So we'll waive the staff report and close the public hearing without objection and consider a motion.
Motion to grant a one-year extension to July 18, 2016, based on the findings contained in the staff report and subject to the revised condition list, attached resolution number 05-42.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments from the members? Please vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is a new public hearing, item number 3A, which is a request for a one-year extension on conditional use permit number 12-06. And for the record, we have received an uncontested letter on this item as well from the applicant's representative. Do we have any speakers on this?
I have no speakers cards, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Anyone care to hear the staff report on this? No? Just for the public's understanding of waiving staff report, the commission generally meets the week prior to this meeting as a public meeting. However, we do not deliberate. Staff presents the proposed agenda, and individuals then can ask their own questions, but we do not deliberate nor make decisions, even though it is a public meeting. So we've spent a few hours reviewing these items prior to this meeting tonight, and that's typically why we don't re-review it, if that's the correct terminology. And particularly when the applicant files what we call an uncontested letter, which indicates they approve the conditions as recommended and accept them and will comply with them. So, I did say we were going to waive the staff report on this, or I don't recall. Okay. No objection to do that? All right, then. Does staff have anything they want to add to this particular one, or?
No, we do not.
Yes?
No.
Okay. All right, then it's appropriate to close the public hearing without objection and consider a motion on conditional use permit 1206.
I'll make the motion to grant a one-year extension to August 20th, 2016, based on the findings contained in the staff report and subject to the revised condition list attachment to resolution number 12-15.
Second.
Thank you. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is item 3B, which is tentative tract map number 61733. Public hearing is open on this matter. For the record, we have received an uncontested letter on this item as well. Do we have any speakers on this?
We do have one speaker's card, Mr. Chairman. The speaker indicating they favor the project.
That what? I'm sorry?
Pardon?
I do have one thing I'd like to ask.
Oh. He apparently has a question.
Okay, hang on a minute. We'll hear the staff report, and then you can ask anything you like. So if we could hear the staff report, please.
Sure. Good evening, Chair Voss and Commissioners. I have before you tonight a request for an extension for tentative tract map number 61733. On July 18, 2005, the Planning Commission approved this tentative tract map for 2 years. The Planning Commission approved a one-year extension in 2007. Since 2008, the state granted 4 automatic time extensions, the latest in 2003, which carried the expiration of this map to July 18, 2015. The state has not passed an additional bill to grant another time extension. As a result, the applicant is requesting a one-year extension, which will be the second of 3 available extensions for this map. Since the time of the map's original approval in 2005, the city has adopted standards and regulations to improve the quality of development in the city. Therefore, city staff recommends that the applicant revise the map to extend the street improvements on Avenue L4 to the easterly property line and to shorten the length of Street B in order for houses to be sited to front Avenue L4. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the one-year extension subject to the conditions of approval. That concludes staff's presentation. Staff is available for any questions.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments before we hear from the applicant, the owner?
I have one.
Pardon?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Ani, you said that originally planning saw it in 2005, and then you said the state did 4 automatic extensions, but then you said 2003, and I was kind of like...
Did I say 2000? It's 2013.
Okay. That's all.
All right, thank you. So we have a speaker.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Ronald Guyadine.
I didn't hear the last name.
Guyadine. Good evening.
Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for hearing me on this. I have no problem with the proposed tract. I happen to be one of the property owners. What the map shows is 26th Street West. Lived on that street for many years. It is not 26th Street West. It is Anna, A-N-A, Madre, M-A-D-R-E, Lane. Some time ago, someone wanted to change the name. We wanted to make sure that the name does not get changed. You can understand why we don't want the name changed. But the real reason I'm here has to do with the environmental issue associated with the project. When they started this project in 2005, dust was quite an issue, and it has now turned into a Baja track. And I like motorcycles and I like people on their four-wheel drive equipment. I don't have a problem with it, but when you're running back and forth across these people's track, you do make a lot of dust, and it does disturb the entire neighborhood to the east of that project. So what I would ask the commission, if there is something you could do about that, if you look at the map that's up, you can see there's quite a few tracks where they've decided to drive through the area. And if there's anything you could do about it, we the neighbors on what you're showing as 26th Street, it's actually, like I said, Anna Madra Lane. If there's anything you could do for us to mitigate that dust and dirt, and maybe even do something about the four-wheelers and those people that like to do the desert riding, we really would appreciate it. And that's the reason I'm here.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll ask the city attorney the assistant city attorney. We're going to promote you tonight to city attorney. The assistant city attorney to comment on the process that complainants can go through with our city to raise an issue like you just have.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Ludicky on this, if you don't mind.
It's actually somewhat of a difficult situation. It's an open piece of property. We've tried in the past to address these a number of ways. Property owners have fenced them, only to have people who still want to get on the site, knock them over, or in some cases steal the fence, because they appear to be popular, especially if they're chain link. What we will do, if I don't know if there's issues with illegal dumping or things like that, we've tried to deal and address those, but it sounds like this is a trespassing issue. We will make the property owner aware of the situation. Obviously, they have a vested interest in trying to make sure that things are not happening on their property that are what I would call nefarious or potentially dangerous. But recognize there are some limits to actually what can happen with it. It's just an open piece of property, and it's looks like there was some preliminary grading that was done on it, which probably makes it even more of a challenge for the off-road people that they're describing. I don't know if those people are coming from your own neighborhood, but if you do, you might want to talk to them also.
And I'll just add in that I will make public safety and code enforcement aware of the complaint so that they can sort of put that on their radar as those officers assigned to that area drive past, drive through, so that they're aware.
Thank you. Thank you both. I would concur with you, Mr. Ludicky. I have a track in very similar conditions directly across the street from my home, and the track developer fenced it with chain link, and over the last 6 months or so, that chain link is disappearing for some reason. I can't imagine why you would take sections of chain link out in the middle of the night, but people seem to do it. So if opportunity for theft presents itself, thieves will steal, I guess. But it does now give the off-roaders a more direct route into the whoop-de-doos, and they have a great time with it. So I don't know how to prevent it. I really don't, other than having code enforcement enforce code if they happen to catch them at it. But the neighbors' concerns, I mean, they have the opportunity to ring in to code enforcement should they see that, and depending on the availability of code enforcement folks or the sheriff, they'll respond.
That's correct. And if it does escalate to a regular recurring nuisance issue, as we've seen with some of the other tracts, partially developed tracts, we can consider escalating it to on the path to some sort of legal remedy that the city could have. It takes a little bit to get it to that point, but we'll keep it on our radar, and we'll make sure that it doesn't escalate any further.
All right, very good, thank you. Anything else? Go ahead.
Is it possible to put any of the dust control stuff that they've done out on like Avenue I on the east side? There's some sort of product they put down that helps with the dust, or?
If there are situations where, you're getting a lot of dust or something off of a piece of property, the city has at times been willing to go out and do that. The difficulty with it is that in some cases you can put it down, but if it gets continuously disturbed, doesn't always help.
Should they call AQMD for blowing dust, or will?
Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult in a situation where you have an active project, because there you have some remedies. But yeah, I mean, if it becomes a site where you're getting a constant stream of dust off of it, AVAQMD does have some remedies. And like I said, ultimately, the property owner does have some responsibility for what occurs, despite the fact that I'm sure they're not encouraging people to go out there and run around on their property.
Is it legal to ride off-road vehicles anywhere in the city of Lancaster?
Technically it's trespassing. I mean, if you don't have the permission of the property owner. But that having been said, you have to have somebody observe it. You have to have someone who's a proper authority deal with it. And I can tell you from experience, obviously, of friends that I had when I was growing up, not me, that you are able to quickly see if someone's coming that might want to stop you from what you're doing. So.
Thank you.
Of course, it was never you, right, Mr. Ludicky? Well, almost never.
That's what I've seen in every deposition I've ever had on the matter. Wasn't me.
I don't recall, Your Honor. Standard answer, right? Well, it's a difficult situation, and as you pointed out, if it's an active development project, there's certainly better controls. But when folks trespass and cause the issue unless the proper authority is notified, there's not much can be done. So hopefully that helped you, sir. Thank you. All right, do we have any other speakers on this?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, then. So it would be appropriate to close the public hearing without objection and consider a motion on this matter.
I'll make the motion to grant a one-year extension to August 17th, 2016, based on the finding contained in the staff report and subject to the revised condition list, attachment to resolution number 05-41.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item 3C is tentative tract map number 70238 and conditional use permit number 07-19. This is a new public hearing. So without objection, the public hearing is open. And do we have speakers on this?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we've received a uncontested letter on this item as well. Does anyone care to hear the staff report on this? No? Anyone? Nope. All right, then. So without objection, we'll waive the staff report and close the public hearing and consider a motion.
I move that we grant a one-year extension to July 20th, 2016, based on the findings contained in the staff report and subject to the revised conditions list, attachment to resolution number 09-13.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is item number 4, which is also a new public hearing. This is on proposed municipal code amendments to Title 17, an amendment to the alcohol ordinance, section 17.42.020, definitions and minor additions to the mixed use, general, commercial, and industrial zones. So, without objection, public hearing is open on this. This is an item that the Commission has been working on for some months, and this is the culmination of our efforts in a written format. So, Mr. Ludicky, or whoever's presenting on this, can we hear a staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll have ask Randy Davis to go over the proposed changes, which are largely definitional in the alcohol ordinance, section 17.42. But very briefly, just wanted to reiterate to the Commission what the other changes are within the code, and it's really to clean up a little bit of a regulatory hole, if you will, that exists in the code right now, and that has to do with nightclubs. When the ordinance was written several years ago, the code was amended to require a conditional use permit when you have a nightclub with alcohol sales. Unbeknownst to us, there are nightclubs that apparently can operate without alcohol sales, but we would still want a conditional use permit for those, even if they don't serve or sell alcoholic beverages. So the cleanup portion of this is simply to close that little hole within the regulatory code, so that anyone who's doing a nightclub in one of those other zone classifications, even if they're not selling alcohol, would still have to go through a conditional use permit process. That having been said, Randy Davis will go through with you staff's recommendations in terms of the definitional changes in section 17.42.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
Good evening, Chairman Vols, Vice Chair Hall, and Commissioners. The City of Lancaster is recommending amendment to Title 17 of the zoning ordinance of the Lancaster Municipal Code by amending Section 17.01.050.b, uses and permit requirements, mixed use matrix. Also to Section 17.12.080.d.11, uses subject to conditional use permit in the commercial zone. Section 17.16.070.a.5, uses for conditional use permit in industrial zones, and to require a conditional use permit for nightclubs without the sale of alcohol. And also, we're also going to amend our Section 17.42.020 definitions related to the provisions for convenience stores, sales floor area, and incidental sellers. On February 12, 2008, City Council adopted ordinance number 896 by adding Chapter 17.42, Alcohol Beverage Establishment, to the Lancaster Municipal Code. The current ordinance has generally functioned as intended. However, on February 23, 2015, a conditional use permit for the off-site general Type 21 license as part of a proposed convenience market went before the Planning Commission for approval. The proposed project was denied by the Planning Commission based on concerns that the proposed convenience market was actually a mini-mart. The Planning Commission determined that the applicant submitted an application to the city for a convenience market with the sale of alcohol in order to avoid separation distances that is required for mini-mart. The applicant appealed this decision to the City Council, and the City Council upheld Planning Commission's decision and directed staff to reevaluate the current alcohol ordinance. In doing so, staff created or wrote a condition for sales floor area, which reads, sales floor area means the calculation of area for the sale and display of specified products, including but not limited to alcohol beverages, fresh meat, and produce. The calculation of sales floor area percentage shall be based on the gross floor area of the premises, including any warehousing or storage areas, and shall include actual product display, including freezer. And you don't have this in your report, but we modified it, and hopefully you got an updated version, but including freezer area. And reasonable public access aisles within the adjacent to said display area. We also revised our definition for convenience market. We revised it to read, convenience market means any business establishment of less than 10,000 square feet not connected with a petroleum products service station and which is characterized by retail sales of food, products, and household items, and which devote a minimum of 15% of overall sales floor area to display and sell of fresh meat and produce. Convenience markets shall be prohibited from selling spirits. The previous ordinance read the minimum of 10%. We increased that by 5%. Staff also reduced the amount of floor area allowed for alcohol, reduced it from 10% to 5%, or up to 2,500 square feet, whichever is less. As Mr. Ludicky stated, we also did some cleanup to the ordinance in regards to nightclubs. Currently, we do not have a requirement for nightclubs without the sale of alcohol, so we're modifying section 17.10.050B for retail sales, and also section 17.12.080.D.11 and 17.16.070.A.5, which makes an applicant have to submit a CUP for nightclubs without the sale of alcohol. This concludes my report. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. There may be some. Anyone? Go ahead.
First off, I'd like to thank Mr. Ludicky and Randy Davis for helping us, and Chun Eng was helping out, and Commissioners Cook and Dr. Coronado for serving on the subcommission that we met to make this happen. And my question has to do with nightclub. Having sat up here before, we have had to revoke two CUPs I've had to revoke since I've been here, two CUPs for nightclubs that served alcohol. Is there something that's happening with nightclubs in town that we're seeing that's making us add this, or is it a possibility of something in the future, just good planning?
I can tell you the specific instance. You recall a couple of years ago that you reviewed a proposed use and ultimately approved it, and then went through the revocation process on a use known as industry theater. There was a point during that applicant's process where he considered removing alcohol sales completely from the business. He didn't. He continued to keep that a part of the request, but quite frankly, if he had done that, there would have been some question based on the way the code reads about whether he would have even been subject to a CUP, given the language saying nightclub with alcohol sales. So that's the specific trigger. That's the thing that we're hoping to try to avoid. There are nightclubs that, I don't believe we have one in the city, but there are nightclubs that operate specifically as under 21 nightclubs. They don't serve alcohol, but every other aspect of their operation is like a nightclub. Bands, dancing, music. Despite the lack of alcohol, they still have the potential for issues. And we feel that putting them through the use permit process is the prudent thing to do.
So for those nightclubs, potential ones that would be before us, we would be able to condition them, and if they violate it, then pull their permit and have them go out of business. What would happen to them if they didn't have CUP? What's the remedy then?
Then you're kind of stuck with whatever civil remedies that the city would have. The conditional use permit from a land use standpoint is a little bit easier to deal with, and easier is a relative term, but it's a lot different when you're dealing with a by right use, so to speak, than one that you've given a discretionary permit to.
If I can just add to that briefly, we could, of course, always look at revoking the business license. As currently written, the business license chapter is not very, it's unwieldy and it doesn't really have a lot of teeth, but I'm actually working on the revisions to those chapters right now. I'm going to be including some stronger language and requirements for alcohol establishments, and a nightclub with or without alcohol sales would be subject to license revocation even if they don't have a CUP. Frankly, the double-pronged approach is probably better moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you all for your help on this.
Thank you. Anything further? Questions, comments? Anyone? Part of our packet tonight included a document entitled Possible Amendments to the Language. However, Ms. Davis, you read that into your staff report, the sales floor area definition, so it's included in the recommendation and resolution tonight? The proposed recommendation and ordinance amendment to the City Council, that's the way it's written?
Yes, the sheet in the back, I'm sorry, I just found it. Yes, the only thing I misspoke was it should read including freezer/cold storage areas, but that's how the new language will read.
Right. And we'd had that conversation earlier regarding including that, potentially including that in the recommendation, which, if I understand you correctly, you have done that.
Correct.
Very good. Thank you. All right, then. Do we have any speakers on this matter?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do have one. Carlo Shahadi.
Is it Mr. Shahadi? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. How are you? Thank you, Commissioners, planning staff. I'm here for the condition for alcohol sales and sizes. I know that there's some talk about adopting a couple rules that I feel like I might have an issue with, along with any other new licensee. My case should be coming up as soon as this gets set in stone. I should be one of the first couple people to come up for my hearing, which I would say about a month or two. First thing is I want to bring up my issue would be that minimizing the square footage on spirits from 10,000 and up. Now, with my project, it looks like it's a 3,600 square foot mini market with produce, deli, and meat. Now, we accept the fact of having 15% meat and produce, which we don't have an issue with. Now, the issue with going to be is we're going to have a lot of expense. We're going to have about a $2,000 to $3,000 electricity bill. We're going to have a deli area which has its own employees. We're going to have our own butcher in the meat department. We're going to have a cashier and, of course, a box boy for stocking. So with all these expenses and with taking out the full alcohol spirit, I think it's going to be a huge issue. Now, understanding taking out the alcohol spirit wouldn't be an issue, and I think we would be able to make it if we had a little leniency on the beer and wine side, meaning a little less than 40 ounce would be fine, maybe about 24 ounce and up, but no singles. I mean, we don't want single beer anyway. We don't want the headache of that. But when we're including nothing under 40 ounce, we're not going to have any customers whatsoever. I won't be able to survive. I'm going to be losing money from my produce side, my expense side, my meat that's going to get thrown away. I don't have a million products to offer like Winco or Food for Less or Walmart to even bother surviving. So basically, I mean, if there's no more talk on this or, more maybe adjusting that size of beer and wine only, which is quite frankly fine, as long as it's 24 and up, because there are more brands and flavors offered on those sizes, then I won't be able to make it whatsoever. I mean, I don't see how. I have a $4,000 rent behind my back too, and I won't survive, not at all. So I would ask if you guys maybe take this into consideration and maybe wait on a little more. Or, I mean, I always thought that you're going to minimize the alcohol spirit, meaning no shots. We thought that was what's going to happen, or no half pints, the 200 milliliter, because of people potentially drinking it outside. But I mean, no spirit at all, plus nothing under 40 ounce. We won't be able to survive whatsoever at all, zero. So I would just thank you for your time.
Good, thank you for your comments. We look forward to your application.
Thank
you. Anything further from anyone? All right, then. This is our, did you want to say something?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Was the single-serving containers addressed when you guys were?
No, these are the definitions that we've been reviewing. The actual process and regulation of beverage container size and the operational issues are a separate matter. Would that be correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We would come back to you once you've made a recommendation on these ordinance changes, whether it's at this meeting or a subsequent meeting, and we would then take up the issue of the conditions that are usually applied to alcohol uses. Embedded within that would be the issue of container sizes, restrictions on single sales or single container sales and things of that type. That we deal not through the ordinance on that, but usually through the conditions of approval.
And historically, we've established standard conditions for similar uses, whatever they may be, depending on the application and circumstance at the time, right?
Correct.
But we tend to be consistent in the writing of conditions for these types of uses under Section 17, right?
Yes.
Title 17, excuse me.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's challenging, just an editorial comment, it's challenging business. However, I think it's clear from the direction of the City Council where we intend to go with this, and if limiting alcoholic beverage sizes, containers, and otherwise, it may not be the best choice to try to locate in this community. That's just an editorial comment. So, what's your pleasure, folks? You want to continue this for another hearing, or are you ready to consider a vote on it? Ready? All right, then. Any further comments from public, staff?
I guess the only thing that I would add, and I think the commission is clear on this, our intent from a staff standpoint was to deal with what appeared to be the core issue as far as the ordinance, and that was what is a convenience market versus a mini market. The original intent of the code was that convenience markets are essentially places that operate like little supermarkets, if you will. And the reason that I think that we have a lot of uses or users that we're looking to locate under that provision was that the code does not require a separation distance for those. Mini markets, the city's code does require that separation distance, and I think that's the difference. We were really looking at trying to make sure that we didn't unduly burden what you might call the specialty food stores or places like that otherwise, without this kind of definition, would find themselves classed as a mini market also, even though their operation is clearly different.
So the only difference between the two definitions, a convenience market can be cited without separation distance and does not, if they sell alcoholic beverages, they are unable to sell spirits. And a mini mart has a separation distance and a control over the entire alcohol beverage product.
That is correct.
And none of them are liquor stores.
No, liquor store is an entirely different category.
Right.
We have actually, in looking back at the research, the city has not approved an actual liquor store in quite a while.
Not since this commission's been constituted for the last 7 years that I know of. Would that be correct?
That would be correct.
All right, very good. Thank you. Anything further from anyone? So, without objection, we'll close the public hearing and consider a motion if you'd like.
Move to adopt resolution number 15-18, recommended to the City Council approval of ordinance amendment as stated in the above request.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Further questions, comments, otherwise? Please vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. All right. Director's announcements is next.
Just to reiterate, we will plan then to bring back before the commission for discussion potential conditions related to alcohol sales uses at your next meeting.
At the September meeting?
Yes.
Okay. And I'd asked about this earlier. We'd taken up the issue on temporary and promotional signs a couple months, or most of the year, and made a recommendation to City Council. However, that hasn't moved forward. Can you tell us what's going on?
In light of a recent United States Supreme Court opinion concerning signs that, for all intents and purposes, provides that pretty much virtually any sign regulation can be deemed content-based and therefore unconstitutional. I've worked with the city attorney, and we've met with the city manager to discuss our options. We'll be putting together a brief analysis memo for city council's consideration until such time as the council has had an opportunity to review and consider that. We're standing down, and it's possible. We don't know what the answer is going to be yet, but it's possible that we may just stay in a holding pattern. There is most certainly going to be litigation with respect to the Supreme Court's opinion, and I wouldn't be surprised if it starts at the state level, because the state of California has has purview over a number of signage regulations that they themselves are content-based. So there will be litigation coming at some point. It may be that council decides that it's prudent just to sit back and wait for some of that litigation to play itself out. I'll keep you apprised.
So our current regulations on signage are still being enforced?
They're still on the books.
Not the answer I wanted to hear, but there you go. It's not a perfect world, is it? All right, thank you. Anything further?
Questions on the Del Sur project. Are we going to have the solar language in there like we did for the last one, the Victorville one? The Victorville thing where it says we don't have to, it'll be decommissioned if it's left unused for so long?
Yes. We are also, just so you're aware, staff will also recommend that language be added as a part of any extensions that are granted to conditional use permits for solar projects.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for reminding us of that. All right. Anything further on the commission? You're done with the director's announcements? All right. Anything on the commission's agenda? Lady and gentlemen? All right, then. This is the time for public business from the floor on non-agendized item. This portion of the agenda allows individuals an opportunity to address the commission on any subject regarding city business. Under state legislation, no action can be taken on non-agenda items. Members of the public should be aware of this when addressing the commission regarding items not specifically referenced on the agenda. We would ask you to also fill out a speaker's card for the recording secretary, and you have 3 minutes. Do we have any public business non-agendized item speakers?
No, Mr. Chairman.
We do not. All right, then thank you. So tonight we're going to adjourn this meeting in memory of Kelvin Tenatongo, who was the assistant to the city manager who passed away recently, and a fine young man and great guy. He will be missed. So the meeting is adjourned to a special meeting for agenda review on Monday, September 14th, 2015 at 5:30 p.m. in the City Council conference room here at City Hall. We just keep moving around, don't we? Yeah, that's the one upstairs, right? Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you all.